Hello, this is my credit card tutorial. When you're making a bag that's small, say a clutch bag or a small crossbody bag that you don't want to put lots of pockets on inside, you can make this credit card holder, which is quite handy to have, just for a few of your cards. So what we're starting with is a piece of fabric that's 15 inches long and 5 inches wide. So if you're using directional fabric, this is the way you want it. And then we have a second piece of fabric that's 5 inches squared, so 5 inches down if you're using directional fabric, 5 inches across. And what we need to do is start by drawing some lines. Now the first line we draw from the top on the right side of the fabric, we draw at 4 1/4 inches down from the top edge. And then the next line we draw 4 inches from the first line, so you're 8 1/4 inches from the top edge. And then the third line, again we want 4 inches from the line you've just drawn, making it 12 1/4 inches from the top edge. And then we want to flip the piece of fabric over that way. Don't flip it long ways, flip it that way. And we want to draw a line on the wrong side at the top, starting at 2 1/2 inches down from the top edge. So that's 2 1/2 inches. Then we go back to doing 4 inches. So it's 6 1/2 inches from the top edge. And then another line at 4 inches. So it's 10 1/2 inches from the top edge. So that's the line drawn. And now turn your fabric back over, and we want to start folding. And the way to fold this is bringing the bottom of the fabric that's the right way up, bring the bottom up to the top until you get to your first line on the wrong side. That's the line that you marked at 2 1/2 inches. And then fold it down. Make sure that your edges are in line and nice and even. And I've got a nice tool here that I use to mark creases. You can iron it if you want to, but I've used a heat dissolvable pen and I'm at risk of dissolving the other lines, so I'm using that first. Now you want to fold back over until you come to the first line you've drawn on the right side that you drew at 4 1/4 inches. And again, making sure that you're keeping the edges in line. Fold the fabric down and finger press or mark with a pen, whatever you finger press or iron. Now you want to bring the bottom up again to the second line you've drawn on the wrong side and fold. And now back over to the second line you've drawn. And then finally the last fold up to meet the last line you've drawn on the wrong side. And then the final fold down for the last line on the top side. And now I get my iron and I want to press all the folds like so and overleaf. Now what we need to do is top stitch the 3 folds on the right side. So I'll do that and come back. Okay, so I've top stitched along the top of the folds, and then I've just basted down the edges very closely to the edge, about an eighth of an inch seam allowance, just to keep them nice and neat. Now at this stage, if you want to, you can trim up to make the pocket dead set square if it has gone a little bit skewy. So that's all I needed to do. And then you get your other piece of fabric, which should be a little bit too big. I cut it big on purpose, just so that I knew I had more than enough for when I finished. So you want to put this right side down, and then if you turn over, you'll see that that is left at the bottom. So just trim the bottom to match up with the top, the credit card slots. So now we've got a nice matching piece there, and we're going to stitch all the way around, but leaving a good 2-inch gap at the bottom. So we'll stitch at 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, and then we're going to turn it the right way out. So I will go and do that now. Okay, so we've stitched all the way around the edges, and I've trimmed the corners ready for turning. So now we just need to turn it the right way out. Okay, so I've turned it, and using my little turning tool, gently poke the corners out to try and give the good sharp corner that you can. Okay, so it's nice and pushed out as much as I can, and then I'm going to use one of my cards to push down inside to make sure that the pockets are sitting properly where they should. Give it a little press. And then you just want to make sure that the bottom seam edges are folded in nice and neatly, so that you'll give a nice neat closure. Now the last piece of top stitching you need to do is along this top piece. So you top stitch along there, and then I'm going to use excuse me, some double-sided tape. Just going to snip that little stitch that's poking out. I'm going to use some double-sided tape just to keep the bottom closed until we need to use it on our bag. Which for the video will be next, but I've made this tutorial separately to use on other bags and to have on the internet as a standalone tip. So put your double-sided tape in there. And then close it. So there's a nice closed seam now. We'll top stitch along the top, and voila, that's our credit card slot ready to go. And all we'll do, I did get 3 out, so that, oh, there it is. I'm not using credit card, obviously. I'm using shop store cards, loyalty cards. I wouldn't show these things online. So there you go. When we sew it to the bag, we'll have an extra little pocket at the back there, because we'll stitch around the edges. So that's your credit card slot with your little pocket that will be created.